I'm excited for this season of Rocket Motivation because my firm, Hand, Arundel, Harris & Sale, Attorneys at Law, where I am a partner, is our sponsor. We understand life and running a business can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. That's why we're thrilled to announce our partnership with Hand, Arundel, Harris & Sale.
Like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about fentanyl then, like I do now. And it doesn't take very much to kill a grown-up. You don't ever get over losing a child. You get through it, but you never get over it. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And my message has always been the same. As long as your child's still alive and breathing, you have a chance and fight. Fight for them, fight for them, fight for them. And I think most parents would give up their own life for their child.
Hey everyone, this is Cate, and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. This week's guest lost his adult son to fentanyl. Fentanyl deaths have become an epidemic in this country. This week's guest will tell his story of losing his only child and how it has affected him. The worst part about this story is that this death, like so many fentanyl deaths, was accidental and preventable. Mike Bailey, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Mike, do this. Tell us kind of where you are now in your life, what you do, family, just kind of how you spend your time.
I am a retired wine salesman, 36 years in the business. Loved it, been all over the world, just about in the wine business. But it was time to let the younger bucks and ladies, buckettes, have it. And me start to enjoy the fruits of my labor by not having to work so hard. And everybody thinks it's a glamorous job, and it is by some means, but it's a lot of work. Everybody doesn't see. So I'm retired. I work for Bay Paper Company. We sell paper products, and I see a lot of the same customers I saw in the wine business. And it's lightweight work because I had COVID about 2 years ago, and it really did an effect on my body, and I just can't lift things like I used to, and paper products is easy to deal with. It's a little bit lighter, and they treat us well over there. It's a family business, and like I said, I get to see a lot of the same customers I had in the wine business.
Right.
And so I knew everybody just about. So other than that, just enjoying. I'm older and with retirement brings Social Security and all that, so I am enjoying that, a little bit. I'm starting to get out and do things that I didn't used to do.
I got you. Okay, well, good. All right, well, let's go back. Let's talk about your son, Brandon. Kind of give us the history of your relationship with your son and how his addiction started.
Well, Brandon was a sweet boy. He was born in 1983. We kept him busy doing things. He was like any typical boy, loved to hustle and wrestle and get into trouble and tease and play jokes on his mom and I. Just an average boy. Tried to play sports, wasn't that good at sports. And one day he comes to me and says, "Dad, I think I want to join the Boy Scouts." And I said, "Oh, son, that's so nerdy. You don't want to do that." And darn if I didn't end up. I ended up being a scout leader, scout master, and scout this, scout that, and wood badge, which is the adult equivalent. And so he got me roped into it, and I was like big time in it. Scuba diving, mountain climbing, whitewater rafting, just loved it. Get out in nature. He was a normal kid. Went on to college, went to get a major in history. He kind of dabbled with me in the wine business and the beverage business, and he worked for Cottage Hill Package Store for a long time out there at Hillcrest and Cottage Hill. Loved it there. He's like I am. I call myself a socialholic. I gotta talk to people all the time, and that's what makes a good salesman. So I thought for sure he was going to follow in my shoe steps, and since he was my shadow, we went to a lot of wine events together, and it was going like that pretty good. But he got sick when he was about 32. He got sick with liver and kidney problems, and his kidneys were dying. So he was a big boy. He was not a petite child at all. He was always been a big boy battling the weight. And the doctor said, "Well, you're going to have to get below 200 pounds. You're going to have a kidney transplant. But before I can do it, you're going to get below 200 pounds."
And how far did he have to go to get there?
He was at 416 pounds because he had a lot of swelling and weight gain due to the meds they had him on. And plus he just ate a lot. And it's when you get bigger, and I've been battling weight for the last couple of years. It's instead of stopping, you keep eating and feeding the machine, and you keep getting bigger and bigger. But we got him, and it wasn't covered by insurance, so we had to do some fundraising, and the community just really came together and helped us get to the money we needed to get for the surgery because they considered it cosmetic.
Yeah.
So we got the surgery done, and he started losing weight. And then all of a sudden, there became a dependency for pain pills, and he easily got hooked on the pain pills and painkillers. And we did our best, tried to get him off of them, and talked to the doctor, said, please don't prescribe him any more pain pills and stuff. And then he got to the point where he would actually hurt himself just to go to a pain doctor and get the pain pills that he wanted. And then at one point, the pain pills wasn't helping and wasn't enough. It just wasn't. I don't know if it's a mental pain. I've never been addicted to anything. I don't know if it is like a mental pain, but he needed something stronger. So he started going to the streets, and he would go get his prescription filled, and then I think they would trade him out and plus some money, and he would get the street stuff. That stuff's been altered in a lot of ways. And I had barely ever heard of fentanyl. And then he had a bout where he nearly died because we saw the message on a text message to his drug dealer on his phone. This was after he had passed away and we had his phone. He said, man, don't give me that stuff. I nearly died from that,
This was after he had taken whatever was laced with fentanyl.
Well, he was already getting street drugs. He was meeting his dealer here and there. A longtime school friend of his he grew up with hooked him up with a guy to go to. And so he started going to him, and then we finally got a hold of him and just said, son, you got to go to rehab. So we put him in rehab several times. And rehab reminded me of summer camp. He'd be calling home. I can't stand it here. You got to come get me. No, we weren't going to do it. And we didn't do it during Boy Scouting and summer camps, and we're not going to do it now. You need this more than ever. But, they would just keep him only so long, and then they brought him home and sent him home or told us, he could go home and he should be good. No, he wasn't good. We read his diary that or his program that he filled out at Atria, and I think it was Atria, where he was going to a class here in Mobile about with other addicts, and they would write down their feelings and their thoughts and on everything. And we read the things he wrote about us and being divorced, because we are divorced. His mom and I are divorced, but we work real closely together and always have, even before all this. But and then one night, I was doing my Wednesday night routines that I always did, going to listen to music around town, and I got a call from his mom, and she was screaming and hollering, saying, come to the house, come to my house. I think Brandon's dead. And so, your heart just stops beating, And I looked at the people I was with. I said, I got to go. And so I hauled Bud out of where I was at, and I drove, and it was real foggy, horribly foggy. And I got to her house, and at that point, they'd already put him in the ambulance and taken him to the hospital. So I helped her get herself together, and the cops were still there, and the detectives were there. Paramedics had to come in. When she called 911, they had to come in and bust the bathroom door down because he'd been fine all day. He cooked dinner that night for her, and she said that he kissed her on the forehead, and said, I'm going to get a shower, and then I'm going to call my girlfriend and then go to bed. So 2 hours later, his dog, he had a black and white Springer Spaniel, and she had a liver and white Springer. And all of a sudden, his dog came and jumped up in bed with her. And she started hollering for him, saying, Brandon, come get your dog. And she never heard anything from him, so she went over that side of the house. They happened to live in a house that was split, like bedrooms on this side and bedrooms on the other side. And he went over there. She went over there, and she could hear the shower running, and he wasn't answering. The door was locked. And so she called 911, and she tried to bust the door down. She couldn't do it. And they got there, and they busted the door down, and they found him unconscious on the floor. So they came and they had taken him to the hospital when I got her and collected her up and helped her get dressed, and we went on to the hospital. And when we got there, we'd been informed that he had already deceased.
All right. Let me ask you this: when did you first discover that Brandon died of fentanyl poisoning?
It was in the autopsy, which was maybe a month later. We didn't know what all was in it. And when we got the autopsy and Becky read it to me and saw the fentanyl, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about fentanyl then, like I do now. And it doesn't take very much to kill a grown-up. And they said it could take like 2 little pieces, small as a salt grain, that could kill a grown person.
Right. And they actually call it fentanyl poisoning, not an overdose.
Right,
And
right.
Why is that?
Well, it is poisoning, and it's like somebody poisoned you. Now, they use fentanyl for patients in the hospital or whatever, for surgeries and different things in good ways. But fentanyl can also, like anything, can be used in a bad way as well. And this is, you got to remember too, this is street fentanyl. This is not manufactured stuff from a big name pharmacy. This is stuff that's coming out of China into Mexico, and not only just I know everybody talks about the border, but it comes in through containers. It comes in through the mail. It comes in a lot of different ways. It sneaks by,
right,
one way or another.
Well, so I guess when you saw it was fentanyl, did you do some research? Did you look it up?
She knew what it was. His mom knew what it was, and she explained it to me more because she works in the medical field. And all my medical knowledge comes from her, getting it from her. And like I said, it's been used in a lot of positive ways in the medical field. But as anything else, there's always a negative use for it as well. I know that there's a lot of people dying out there. And I know there's also fentanyl addicts. And they take fentanyl all the time, and they walk the streets. And I'm like, I don't understand this. And I'm still studying on that. I don't know why some people can use fentanyl and it not kill them, and then somebody accidentally take it one time and not knowing that it's in their composition or their whatever they take, and it just kills them.
So when you learned that this was fentanyl, and you learned that it was what fentanyl is and how this is really, it's laced in these drugs that people are taking. And so this was really, your son's death, his was an accidental death that was caused because somebody but he was buying drugs, I understand.
Yeah.
But somebody put fentanyl in there that he didn't know about it. And so that's what killed him. And when you realized that, how did that make you feel?
That, when Becky and I first talked about it together, her reaction was different than my reaction. I'm wanting to know more about fentanyl and why it kills some and why it doesn't kill others. And her reaction was she wanted to go kill the drug dealer. That's who she wanted to kill. And I was always having to argue, don't do it, stay out of it. And all the detectives and drug enforcement and all them encouraged her not to get involved and just give them time. Yeah. Give them time.
But you guys did assist in going after the dealer and up the chain.
We did because they busted a big gang of them. And I was 44, 49, maybe 48 people they arrested with connections to the cartel. Some of the other parents that were affected by the same group, lost children in the same group, I know some of them went to the trials, and but they asked us not to go to the trial, and we should have went. I wish we'd gone.
Why did they ask you not to go?
Fear of being identified and putting our lives in danger ourselves. It took them a while, a few years, before they started putting everything together because they were trying to go as high up the chain as they could.
Yeah. Well, how high did they get?
I think most everybody they got was in over New Orleans and Texas area, and that you get over there, that's you getting close to Mexico.
Right.
I don't know exactly all of them, but the one that is important to us is the one he was getting it from, and they were able to track it on his phone because we had to give them our son's phone. I forgot how long they kept it, but it's amazing what they can do with technology to trace where somebody's been, and by just their phone. And and sure enough, they were able to put them two together in the same spots by their pings on their phone,
right,
where they were at. But anyway, he's in prison. He went on trial, went to prison. And the thing amazes me, doesn't amaze me, it really doesn't, but he's got a little boy of his own. And at the time, his little boy was like about a year old when all that was going on with Brandon. And I'm thinking, how can you go sell drugs and kill people to young people, and you got a boy at home yourself, or a child at home yourself?
Well, and let me ask you this, and I know this will be a tough question, but I mean, how is losing your only offspring? How's it affected you?
A great deal. The holidays is, of course, the hardest. His birthdays, in my job in the wine business, I used to have to travel to Thibodaux, Louisiana to go visit Rouse's buyer to get new products in the store all the time. And it'd take me through New Orleans, and I'd always start crying because him and I went there a lot to go to wine events in New Orleans. And, we just hang out, went to concerts, just him and I, and just had a good time. Father-son stuff, big wine festivals. And don't get to do that anymore, And then the holidays come along, and we see our friends posting pictures of them at Christmas with their grandkids. And it's also affected in the dating scene. It's affected trying to date somebody. They've got all their children. You don't have yours anymore, because of the tragedy. But that's not important, I do have an unusual, I consider an unusual amount of friends who have children who have died from drug overdose and fentanyl poisoning and murder and other things, and murder due to drug activity and stuff like that. Just unbelievable how many people I know personally, especially some I went to high school with. And I'm just like, wow, how does this happen? Is any other high school like this have that number of people? That just blows me away.
Well, let me ask you, all right, so after losing your son to fentanyl, have you done anything, or what have you done to kind of help other, parents who have gone through tragedies and losing their children?
Well, first of all, when I have a friend who loses a child, they lose a child or their only child, of course, social media is a great way to go if I don't have their phone number. And I'll send them a message that I put together about things that they probably can't expect for a while in the beginning, with them trying to grasp the reality of them not having their child there anymore. Friends of mine, 4 months ago, they had a daughter, graduated from nursing school at Southern Miss. She started feeling sick one day. Her mother came and got her, and she had a brain aneurysm in the car on the way to the hospital. And so she died right there in the car. And so that's not a drug overdose, but still losing a child. And so I sent the message to them saying, look, there's no limit on how long it takes to get over this. You don't ever get over losing a child. You get through it, but you never get over it. And I said, don't worry about what people say to you. Some people may say, and they told Becky, the child's gone. Get over it. You just want to punch them. But then they've never lost a child and they don't know. You kind of back them out of your life. You don't need negativity like that. You need people who love you and are positive and who respect you for your losses, and understand if you make 100 posts a day on Facebook with pictures of your child and you do it over and over every day, that's their way of mourning with it. That's their way of mourning. And you can't tell people how to mourn, what's the best way to mourn or anything. You just do it whatever you feel at the time and emotion.
Well, have you shared your story like in a group setting with other parents?
We have. We used to be members of Compassionate Friends, and we kind of still are. But we were going with that, and I think they met on the second Tuesday of every month. And if it's your child's birthday that month, you would bring a picture. If you wanted to bring a cake, you could do that. And we would do that and celebrate our children who passed away they had birthdays that month. And it was a pretty big group. I was amazed. People drove from all over, Southwest Alabama mainly. But it was a great group. They would meet for a couple hours, But sometimes it got to be the same people, same story. And that's okay. It's okay. One thing I learned, there's always somebody's got a bigger problem than you have. Those problems are bigger. One lady who's coming, she had 3 daughters and an ex-husband, and she let 2 of them go out to Houston to visit her ex-husband. He was out there on a job, and for some reason she just kept her smalls, went home. But she felt okay to send her, but she said, I think you're going to stay home. And anyway, while they're out there, he was hit head on, and it killed him and the 2 daughters. So, but she'd come there smiling, and she'd smile. And I say, how do you smile? How do you smile? I couldn't do that. But you do. You eventually, and I watch friends on social media who have lost a child, and some even lost, grandchildren. And eventually they do come around. They start to smile. They want to smile. And you should, but I also try to talk to people who are trying to understand their friends who have lost a child. don't feel bad about laughing around them. If you don't know what to say, there'll be a time to say it. But just let them know somehow, some way that you're there for them and you love them and you're thinking about them.
I get it's just important to be present.
Some people just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't know what to say. And I remember the first night I went out, everybody just started piling around me and hugging me and praying with me. And it was very deep and very emotional. And you realize how caring people are when it's just, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Well, what advice would you give parents who have lost a child?
For any at all?
Yeah.
I would say you haven't got to right away, but trying to find a support, trying to find somebody who's like you and talk. And I like talking to people individually. And I found that instead of in a support group, I like to just sit down with them one-on-one and tell them my experience and listen to their experiences and what they're dealing with. I had one friend, she lost her son a couple of years ago. She lost her husband last year. And then she's got a daughter who's dealing with drug addiction. And then I got friends who have kids that are drug addicted and they don't know where they're at. And I'll never forget one mother one day, the first one to ever say this to me, and I've had it said to me a few other times. They'd say, "I envy you and Becky." And I'm saying, "How do you envy?" They said, "Well, your son's dead, but you know where he's at. I don't know where my child's at. I don't know if my child's buried in a shallow grave in the woods. We don't know where she's at or where he's at. He may be dead under an overpass, and he just may need that one extra reach out to him to get him to come in and let's get well."
And let me ask this. So what advice would you give, because you guys went through it, to parents who have a child that is going through addiction?
Yeah. I always say if your child's still breathing, you got a chance. And keep fighting for them. Fight for them, fight for them, fight for them. And I think most parents would give up their own life for their child, and whatever it takes. And if you know there's drugs involved and you know who dealers are, turn them in. I had a friend call me 3 weeks ago, like at 1 or 2 in the morning, and I said, "Call the police. Tell them the name of the person that's giving your kid drugs. It doesn't matter. Tell them who it is. It's better to try to keep your child alive than let them die." And then say, "Why didn't I do more?" Because I wished I had done more. At the time, I thought it was just a phase, and I was the heavy-handed parent. I dished out the discipline and tough love and that, but I was also a sweet, caring parent too. I loved my son and I was very close to him, and it really tore me up. But I'm hoping that my story can help other people and help other parents. But his mom, 3 months after he died and we buried him, she picked up a paintbrush, and that's how she deals with it. And doing the same thing I do is get out there and talk and go to meetings and go all the overdose awareness events that go on. And I remember when the mayor's office called us and said, "Hey, we made a big bus and we're going to be down at the city hall down in the atrium, and we'd love for y'all to be there so we could talk, announce it to the news." So we were there with several other parents and who have lost their child. And my message has always been the same: as long as your child's still alive and breathing, you have a chance, and fight and fight and fight. Don't ever give up on your child.
I got you. Do you look at life any differently now?
I value it a lot more. And not only that, I nearly died 2 years ago from COVID, so I really value it. And the nurses there at the hospital say he's going down the drain. He's not going to make it. And then I got out of it and got well. And I said, all right, God's given me this chance for some reason. And it keeps coming to me through my son. My son, when he was growing up, I said, I was still trying to grow up too. He would always come sit on the edge of the bed. And a lot of times at night, I can feel him, the weight of his body sitting on the edge of the bed, how it goes down a little bit. And the December, 2 weeks before I got COVID, I woke up and it was the old Brandon, my old Brandon, the heavy-set Brandon. And I looked at him, I said, "Son, what do you need?" He says, "Come on, Dad, it's time to go." And I jumped up, and my bed was soaking wet. I just that quick, and I was panting, and I was scared. I was crying. I was like, what in the world? So I went and took a shower, threw the sheets off the bed, threw a blanket on there, and went back to bed. And sure enough, I had COVID within a week later. And I'm thinking, what kind of message is that, And then is he trying to tell me something? And then after I battled COVID and got back, I had to stay with his mom for like 3 months to get well. I had almost learned to walk again and couldn't use my hands or arms hardly because it hurt so bad to write, just to write. And I still have trouble with caps and on the car, trying to put gas in. I still have trouble, after effects, and the fog is terrible and and then one night, I'm starting to slack up and I'm starting to not take care of myself like I should be again. Then he came to me again, and I reached out to a medium friend of mine. She said, "Yeah, he's trying to tell you you're slipping. You're getting back to your old ways, and you're going to die if you don't take care of yourself." So I had to straighten up,
so he's giving you messages still from the grave.
I do have a friend, and she's a medium, and she reached out to me and Becky after he had passed away, and he said, "I don't know if these mean anything to you, but this is what he'd said to me, and all three things she's told me was dead on."
Right.
And I'm going, "How do you know this?" She said, "It used to be a curse, now bless it." And
so, Mike, what do you do to try to minimize your pain from losing your son?
I stay busy, just stay busy, which I'm a busybody anyway. I've always stayed busy doing something. And even though I live in an apartment and I don't dwell in houses and neighborhoods anymore where I can always got yard work to do, I got things to do there. I'd stay busy. At one time I was working 3 jobs. I was still trying to keep my fingers and my thumb on the wine business, working for Bay Paper, worked for a wine bar for a while. And I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm a socialholic, and I like to socialize and talk to people. And I think that's what I do best. But yeah, I just try to stay busy and especially with the subject of fentanyl and people who have lost their child, I try to reach out to them and let them know there's somebody there.
And you've got your own radio show.
I certainly do. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, and tell us about it.
Well, it's Sip and Chew with Mike and Stu on 106.5 at 11 a.m. every Sunday, right after Bill Finch's gardening show. And we talk about food and wine. And it's a fun, entertaining. We're real lighthearted. We're a snob-free zone. We're not snobs. I think after 36 years in the wine business, I know a little bit about wine. I call myself wine enthusiast emeritus. How you say it?
Emeritus.
Emeritus, yes. Yeah. I've always had trouble with that word. But we just cover wine and food products, and we do pairings. And the holiday season, we try to pair beverages and wines with your meal, and what are good gifts to give, And we give reviews on places we've gone and ate, and we're not only there too. We're we got the Facebook page, and we got Instagram, and I'm not sure about Twitter. But we do. I think Stu does have us on a podcast as well. I'm not the tech guy.
And on Facebook and Instagram, how do they find you?
Just go to Sip and Chew, Mike and Stu, with Mike and Stu. Simply Sip and Chew would probably find us.
All right,
and we're the two, you look at us and say, yeah, they got faces for radio. But yeah, we've been doing it, we're going on 10 years.
Well, good. All right. Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming in and being just so, open in your heart and telling your story. I think this is going to help a lot of parents who've lost children, especially and fentanyl's such a big deal now that every state is just, you got fentanyl death after fentanyl death. So, and
it's a worldwide problem too.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for coming in and telling your story. But I always give the guests the parting shot. So I want you to now kind of give us some great words of wisdom to take us home.
And don't ever hold it inside. Just get out there, and if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. And that's even if you're not the one with the problem. If you talk to somebody can help them, talk to them. Just don't hold it inside. And regardless of what side you're on the battle, talk to somebody. And parents, if your kid's on drugs and struggling and you find out who the drug dealer is, whatever, call the cops, call the police, get them involved. And do anything you can to save your child.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Mike, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Mike Bailey's story of the pain of losing his son to fentanyl is a tough one. Using his pain and what he has been through to help others is an inspiration. Next week's guest is Stephanie Nod. At age 23, she was sentenced to 30 years for her part in a drug conspiracy. She'll tell her story of dealing with life in prison and how she has used her experiences to counsel teenagers and young adults. It's going to be a great story. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. I want to again thank our sponsor, my law firm, Hand, Arundel, Harrison Self, with offices in Mobile, Birmingham, Fairhope, and Athens, Alabama, and Destin, Panama City Beach, and Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. We are uniquely situated among the Southeast major law firms to provide legal direction to clients throughout Alabama and Northwest Florida. So whether you're looking for legal advice, litigators, or simply a partner you can trust, Hand, Arundel, Harrison Sale is there for you. Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out Hand, Arundel, Harrison Sale for all your legal needs. Visit our website at handfirm.com. And if you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cate, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.